Welcome to Creative, a podcast about musicians and artists for musicians and artists, exploring the life of successful creative people. My name is Vic Hyland and I shall be your host. Today I shall be interviewing Amanda Cook, who is one of the leading classical guitarists of her generation. Amanda plays extensively and around the world and teaches. I'll leave it to Amanda to explain a little bit about her life and how she developed her guitar playing. Hope you enjoy the interview. Today I'm going to be interviewing Amanda Cook, who's a classical guitarist. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes.
Good. It's nice to see you. It's been a long time.
It has been many years.
Yeah. A long time. So, best thing really, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, primarily, I play classical guitar, and I suppose my main performing things I do solo concerts, and I'm also in a wonderful guitar quartet called Vida Guitar Quartet, with three other wonderful players, Mark Eden, Mark Ashford, and Christelle. So I've been playing with them for about I think it's heading on for 5 years now. Wow. Maybe a bit longer. And so I feel I'm really happy with having that mixture of solo work and chamber work. It's so different, and the interactions obviously that you get with chamber music is so exciting and fun in performance. And then doing a few other little smaller ensembles. I've been working with soprano a bit, and with a cellist as well, so a couple of other little chamber things as well. And then I teach privately as well, so all ages, adults and children, and in between.
That's lovely.
Which I really enjoy as well.
So what I normally do with these sort of conversations is we start right at the beginning, really. How did it all sort of begin? Did you start being interested in the guitar, or was there something earlier on?
It was the guitar. Yeah, I mean, at home, my parents are real music lovers, and my dad had a couple of guitars lying around the house. In the 60s, he used to play. He was in a kind of bluesy band. Well, it ended up being more of a soul band called the Jimmy Brown Sound in the 60s. And he used to tell me stories of his life in those days. And they had the same agent as the Who, and they managed to actually share the stage with the Who in one gig in the 60s. So he's got some fun stories. He taught me a few little things on the guitar just for fun. And we had a little old electric organ at the top of our stairs, and I have memories of playing Green Onions on that when I was young.
Wow.
And my dad taught me a bit of that. Music was around, and also I have another memory of the back of their wardrobe. It was like a big sort of double wardrobe, and I used to climb in at the back on the floor. There was this whole stack of old records, and I used to sort of crawl in there and look through all the old LPs, and there were quite a few classical guitar records in there. So I started sort of digging stuff out and just listening, to various things that they had, a mixture of classical and more popular music. And I just started to really love the sound of the guitar. And then, when I asked to have lessons, and it just so happened that there was a boy in my class at school who was having lessons with a teacher in our local town. So that was in Bognor Regis in West Sussex, where I grew up near there. And so I went along when I was 7 and started having private lessons with Sasha Leftoff, who's still really active in the town, with his music school and his guitar society that he runs. And so that's where it began. So I did start with a really sort of dedicated classical teacher. So it was the classical style that I began learning. even though I was sort of listening to a mixture of guitar styles. I was sort of drawn to that, rich, warm sort of mix of colours. Well, not that I could have obviously articulated that at the time at 7, but yeah, I was drawn to the sound of the classical guitar.
So it was about 7 years of age when you started?
Yeah, that's when I had lessons, started sort of proper lessons.
Yeah, because that's always an interesting one, isn't it, about what age somebody should start to play. And the guitar particularly is a tricky one, isn't it, really, for that?
It is a challenge. It can be a challenge physically, having to, just holding down the notes and just the coordination between making sure you're pressing and plucking the same string, and a few physical issues.
Yeah. So did you find, I mean, it's always tricky, this, isn't it, when you sort of go back, because I can't remember much about when I was 7, really, but
no.
Can you remember whether it was sort of, it seemed easy to you, or was it?
No, I do remember it. No, I do remember definitely, having challenges, meeting challenges. Sasha was a wonderful teacher at really working with the individual, and he really sort of always, right from day one, brought the music to life. So although there might be something that was difficult, he would present it in a fun, musical way, interesting way. Like he would tell a story about it, and he would play along with me with simple tunes I was playing, and so it was all ended up being more than just the notes and the rhythm and the trickiness of it, potentially. So yeah, there definitely were challenges, but he was great at picking repertoire, as well, material that would sort of suit your level. So yeah, I do remember it being difficult, and there were certainly times, as I do remember in my pretty early teens, or 12, 11, 12, 13. I do remember actually saying to my mum, I want to stop, because at that time I was finding it hard to practice, because obviously schoolwork is getting busy, and another other side of your life getting busier with friends. And she said, I think you're really going to regret that. And, because I was starting to play, he also put on lots of lovely local concerts, and we're starting to do the interesting stuff. And she basically sort of said, no, I don't think you should, but not in a, she wasn't a really sort of militarian mother, but she could see, I suppose, that I really did enjoy it when I, actually got down and played. I think it was just a period where I wasn't practicing enough, and so things were more of a struggle. And obviously, I'm incredibly grateful that she sort of helped me to carry on.
Well, you see, that's an interesting point about the age thing, because you see that all the time when you're teaching, don't you? You get that sort of pocket of time when suddenly somebody will turn around and go, oh, well, I don't want to carry on. And you think, my goodness, you're really good. And at that point, you either, obviously things pan out in different ways, but I've seen it so often and I think it's slightly different for boys, actually, a little bit later, maybe, I don't know. But certainly that period of time for girls is difficult. It's a tricky one, particularly when there's a lot of other pressures going on. Because you can see the sort of picture of where they're going and where they've come from, and also it's tricky to predict exactly how good somebody is going to be, but you get a feel that they've got what it takes, if you see what I mean. That sounds a bit of a contradiction. Yeah, and that's always a tricky one, and I think that what you're saying is really interesting, because I think what it boils down to is depending on what the parents say. If the parents can turn around and either go, no, you're carrying on, or if they're good enough to be able to cajole them into carrying on. But I think that's a real, it was good on her to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a very close relationship, and I think I did trust her as well. That that I potentially would really regret it, and I probably for a while begrudgingly carried on, and then obviously I remember as well starting to really understand that actually playing the guitar had a huge impact on me as a person, and that if I didn't play this would have been for a few years later certainly, but if I didn't play for a while or a few days, hadn't practiced, I would get really bad tempered, a bit like as well it's similar actually as if I'm really hungry. It's my friends and family, if I'm starving hungry, I start to get really irritable and short tempered. And actually became a bit like that with my guitar, that I was thinking, God, why do I feel there's something like not right? I don't feel, I'm feeling on edge. And then I play and I was like, oh, okay. And
That's interesting.
yeah, and that's always stayed with me. And I think it becomes a need, that you.
I want to pick up on that because I'm putting my NLP hat on here. Do you think? No, I'm not quite sure how. I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think that the world seems different when you view it artistically? In other words, when you play, does it make things seem different to you? Sounds a bit of a long-winded, and I'll say why I asked it that way in a minute.
I think it makes you certainly think. I've spent a lot of time thinking about my sort of place in the world, and what I'm offering, because often as well, music can, and sometimes you meet some attitudes where people think the musicians are quite self-indulgent, and it's not a proper job, and all that sort of narrow-minded people who don't really understand. And so I sort of looked at myself as well, and is this worthwhile? Is it worthy what I'm doing, and things like that. And I think as a musician, I spend a lot of time, working with other people, working with other musicians, or with my students, and meeting lots of new, huge, varied mix of people at concerts. We chat afterwards, and different promoters, and so I feel very lucky in my life that I get to do that. And you do see such a huge way of people live their lives, from a different backgrounds they've come to, and I feel as a musician, we do have time to think about. I don't want to sound too sort of corny, but the kind of the beauty of music and the arts in general, because I'm a big lover of exploring, art and drama and dance as well, and all that brings to you as a person, and to your own art as well, I think, so I think, just having that opportunity to see how people operate and run their own lives, and how they treat other people as well. All those experiences have certainly made me think about the kind of person I want to be, and how who I try to be, who I try and get my children to be, I suppose, as well, now that I'm a parent.
Yeah. You see, when I was doing the NLP stuff with Richard Bandler told a story about Robin Ford, who was a sort of jazz sort of fusion blues player, really great player. I used to work with Miles Davis and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but Bandler knew Robin Ford when he was like I don't know, 14, 15. And he said that he met this lad, and he said, "My God, he played the guitar, and it was like, I've never heard anything like this at all." And he said, "What happens when you play?" And Robin Ford said, "The world seems a better place." Which I thought was really interesting, because it's like, it sort of sums up the need thing, sort of, if you sort of mean, and where you fit into this, and how maybe you're giving something back, or that doesn't mean to be egotistical or anything, but it just made everything seem to be a lot better.
Absolutely. I mean, that definitely, because that's the thing, that with, you think, I'm just doing these my concerts, and and doing a bit of teaching, but actually the feeling that I get after I've given a concert, and not just to make myself feel better, but you can see that just that giving that, and as any musician that's offering a concert and offering music to their audience, it actually feels like a real privilege, I find. And it may be a small thing. It's certainly not life-saving, but I think that ability, well, maybe at the moment, yeah, it certainly has been, actually, for me at the moment. I think being able to connect with other creative means in lockdown, definitely. But no, I just feel it's a real privilege to be able to give, I feel like every time I give a concert, again, it sounds a bit cheesy, but it's a gift that you're giving to people. It's like, here you are, here's some beautiful music, and I really hope you'll enjoy some of it. And I think that I feel very lucky to be able to do that for a job?
I think you see, I've been interested in again, this sounds corny, in sort of what music is really. If you sort of go back far enough, it's obviously part of who we are, just in the same way as birds sing. We create music, and you think, well, there's something intrinsically beyond the intellectual analysis of what it's about. There's something deeply meaningful to us as creatures, that we create sound. And you think, well, we know that music affects us on a physiological level. And I think that's, because we've sort of got ourselves separated out from this because we want to sort of think it through. But I think in actual fact, music is that powerful that we have to do it in some way, even if that's just running at a tempo. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. It's something intrinsically us, and we've sort of lost that to the point that we feel a little bit like, when we try to explain what we're doing, we find it a little bit awkward.
Well, it teaches you so much about yourself, doesn't it? You just think about, you listen to variety of music and how it affects your mood, and how it awakens feelings that you'd forgotten, that you could experience. And I mean, it's just wonderful. I remember when my daughter was probably about 18 months old, and we used to listen to music while she's having her tea. And I remember she used to love listening to the Jungle Book music, and there's the piece of music where I can't remember actually what happens now in the film. That's really annoying. Suddenly the music just goes very sad and reflective, and she'd been dancing around with the elephants, dancing, and that, the really vibrant music and dancing, having fun, and all of a sudden the music changed, and she just stood there and burst into tears. And I thought, wow, that's quite amazing that she doesn't understand, Yeah,
but I actually think it's
why.
It's not. Yeah, it's on some level that we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had a very interesting experience as a kid. My sister, who was older than me, had an Elvis. Well, she had loads of records, but she had this Elvis Presley. It might not have been hers actually. It might be my brother's, but it was the music for, I think was it Hawaiian Holiday or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But there was the opening track, I think, on this album was like Hawaiian guitar or some sort of chanting or something. And I can remember that when my brother or sister put this on, it absolutely freaked me out. And I was seeing things coming out of the record player. It really frightened me. And I could remember the experience. And weirdly, about 2 weeks ago, my daughter came over to see me, and at the office where because I do most of my work from the office. I'm actually at home today, but and I had my guitars in the office space where I am, and she came upstairs because there's all these guitars everywhere. So I picked up this one guitar, sort of like a jazz guitar, and played a little couple of bits, and that was, she liked that and jigged around. And then I picked up this other guitar, which is actually tuned for slide. And I played, it's like just tuned to E. And I started to play some bottleneck guitar, and she didn't like it. She didn't like it. She was like, she sort of shrunk. And I thought, well, that's weird, because that was like the experience that I had. She found it was like, she didn't, and my daughter just said, well, that's sort of funny. And I said, no, she just probably doesn't, there's something about the feel of it that we can't intellectualize this. It's just something else there. So that was weird, because it's very similar, because it was, I remember that it was this Hawaiian guitar thing on this record that made me feel so frightened at virtually the same age. I must have been about two or three.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? So, so I think that's fascinating. It's always good watching young children, especially when you're teaching, because it teaches you so much about yourself and your own learning. when you watch them learn.
Yeah, finding out what they're gonna get a kick out of learning, and get really into, and yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's go back, because
Mm.
go back to your journey. So we got to about, when you're sort of like 12 or 13. So was it shortly after that you started to really get that there was something, you were obviously connected to the music you were playing, and it was really affecting you. So where's it developed from that point then?
Well, my teacher, so Sasha, my teacher at the time, his children had started, they're wonderful musicians, and they started at the Royal College of Music Junior Department, going up to their Saturday school. And so he felt that it was time for me to have a new teacher, and just, that whole fresh input, and so 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 it would have been when I was 13, and so I auditioned to go to the Royal College, and started going there when I was 14, every
Right.
Saturday, with Charles Ramirez, who ran the guitar department
Oh,
there
yeah,
at the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And Sasha was very, he'd already got to know Charles, and so it was lovely. It was a lovely sort of handover, because it's obviously it's very emotional, when you leave a teacher. And Sasha still is now very close to me and my family, and always will be. And I'll always be, very grateful to him for what he has given me. So it was lovely that Sasha really obviously trusted Charles as well. And so it was a good sort of transition, and I really loved learning with Charles, with him. So I used to go up every Saturday. And
That's quite a journey, isn't it, to London?
it's about, I guess it was the time. Yeah, it's about hour and 40 minutes on the train there and back.
Yeah.
So it was good. There was a little group of us that went up.
Oh, okay.
Because there was, his children, plus I think one other pianist came up with us. So there was a little gaggle of us that went on the train. So it kind of was fun. It was kind of a social thing as well, which is nice actually, because as a guitarist, that's the thing I found being in music departments is I mean, I think well, I know it's very different now, but there isn't a huge amount for the guitarist. You're obviously not getting the orchestras and your chamber
No.
ensembles, and we did have a guitar ensemble, but there was quite a lot of hanging around in the day waiting for your lessons while the others were going off and doing their
Yeah.
big fun groups. So it was nice to sort of have a good social on the train.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's a lot of dedication. And then
And it
what
was
age was that? Did you say?
14. And it was obviously exciting going up to London, and occasionally my mum, she usually it would be just us kids going up, but my mum might come up and we might stay overnight and go to a concert. So it felt quite exciting to
Yeah.
go there, and yeah, I did
Yeah.
enjoy it.
So, what's the next step along the way from that then?
Yes, I suppose during that time, I was, starting to go to festivals. I know one big impact was when I was 15, and I went to the first guitar festival at Westdean College in West Sussex, near Chichester. So that started, the first year was when I was 15, and so I went along and stayed there for the week in this like stunning stately home. So it was quite an amazing experience, to go there on my own, and stay there and just meet all these incredible players, and so that definitely had a huge impact on my kind of love of the instrument. And that was the first time I heard David Russell give a concert, and in this beautiful kind of small church, to hear and I'd never heard anything like it, his
Yeah.
sound and the repertoire he played. I remember him playing this incredible flute sonata, which still like gives me goosebumps, when I hear the slow movement. And I remember hearing him play that, and just started to think, wow, this is what you can potentially do for your job,
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
you can do with the instrument as well. Obviously, it
Yeah.
opened up my eyes to lots of aspects, of being a musician, and being a guitarist. So yeah, that did have a big impact on me at 15. And so then I decided to carry on with Charles when I went to do my degree, when I finished my A levels. And and through that period was sort of going to various festivals. And I went to a really great A level college where there was like a BTEC music course. There's a lovely music department there in Chichester, this was. So I used to play a lot with some of the acoustic players as well. So you're just starting to open your eyes and ears to lots of guitar styles,
Yes.
which I
Yeah.
think really helps you along the way. was
So what school?
fantastic.
Just being nosy. What school were you at Chichester then?
So the college where I did my A levels was the Chichester College of Science, Arts and Technology. I don't know if it's
Right.
still called that. Yeah, right in the centre of the
Yeah.
city.
Occasionally I go down to Chichester, so it's nice.
Okay.
I really like Chichester. It's got a nice sort of feel.
Yeah, it was a great department there because again, you felt it wasn't like you're in a school sixth form, so it was you felt quite much more independent and some really interesting and a big mix of musicians there actually. Yeah, that I'm still
Yeah.
friends with.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
It was
So
supposed to be.
so so from that point then, where are you? So you're doing your degree,
Yeah, so I went full time, yeah, to study at the Royal College with Charles.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
moved up to London.
So when did you start performing? Obviously, you must have been performing on and off, doing little concerts and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Sasha, yeah, he used to put on little community concerts for right from really early levels, and he also really encouraged us to enter all the local music festivals. So I was getting the opportunity to play in front of people, and that's great, to experience
Mm.
that, and did really struggle and still do. I've got various periods in my life where I have really struggled with performance nerves, and so it was great to have those kind of experiences. And I was starting to do more substantial performances, through Sasha. Even when I then moved on to be with Charles, I was still connected with him, and he would, because he was obviously quite a big figure in the music, well, still is in the music scene down there. So he'd get me to play at charity concerts and things. Yeah, and then I remember starting to get booked to play at the Chichester Festival and sort of
Right.
local festivals, and then I went to do. I entered the first Admira Young Guitarist of the Year competition that was
Right.
down at Bath at their fantastic festival at Bath Spa University. So I entered that. So I guess that was my first year of college, of music college. So I would have been 18, maybe 19 then. So I managed. I was very lucky, and I won that competition.
Did you?
And so the panel was this incredible array of predominantly UK guitarists. So, I remember Gary Ryan was on the panel and Alan Neve, and lots of other, I think John Mills and lots of other players. So, that started. I remember then like Alan invited me up to Scotland, and I played a couple of things up there for him, and that definitely helped to start
Yeah,
to
it's
get.
amazing.
And it also taught me, and being at Westdean actually, because after my first year at Westdean when I was 15, I started to go there every year, every summer, because I loved it so much. Was lucky enough, my mum and dad were very generous letting me go there every year. And you started to meet lots of people, and it made me realise as well, being at college as well, that you really, as a guitarist, you just have to get out. You can't wait. You can't, you're not going to get the opportunities, because at the time, like I was saying, there wasn't a huge amount for the guitarist, in the degree course as well. We had our ensemble, had a handful of art of teaching lessons. Like I say, I know the department, it's changed a huge amount now, but I have to say at the time, there wasn't a huge amount, and there weren't many visiting artists. And so, going to these festivals and entering these competitions, I really saw the value of it. And I know it made a huge difference, because the amount of people that I then got to meet, and then they invited me to play. So I think it was crucial to me
Yeah.
getting any kind of work.
Yes, absolutely. Sort of connecting with people. That's from my sort of teaching experience. I've had some people, they go on to do college work and all the rest of it. And the first question, because they're saying, "Do you think this is any good?" My stock sort of answer is, "Well, who are you going to meet there?" Because that's the real clincher. If you turn up at a place and you're rubbing shoulders with people that you're going to be able to really do something with later, and not necessarily them. It might be this person knows this one. Because I think that's so important. And of course, you don't realise at the time. You just
No.
don't realise. And of course, and this is another problem for guitarists as well. I mean, I call them the bedroom guitar players. The people that never even get out and sort of do anything. The ability to be able to interact socially with people is just so important. You know, it's such an important skill. Not just musically interact with people, but just interact with people.
Which is what we're realizing now, definitely the value
Oh,
of that. I get so excited when I hear somebody walking past the house, going down the lane. It's like, oh, please come and talk to me.
yeah,
I want to talk to someone else.
a real person, not at the end of the screen. I know.
But yeah, I do remember going on a course after, I think this was after, the year after I graduated from college. I went on an amazing intensive week course with David Russell up in the Dolomites in Italy, and it was in this little ski resort in the middle of summer. So it was so it wasn't obviously being used as a ski resort, and it was just beautiful. So and I remember him saying to me at the end of the week, saying, you must remember, you know, that it's the value of entering these competitions and going to these festivals. It's not just, you know, about that you may win, but it's the people you meet, you know, because these people will be running their own university departments in years to come. They'll be running their own festivals, inviting, you know, or running concert series, and that, you know, is interesting. Like you say, you don't realize it at the time, and it's true, because I made such great friends during that period who I'm still in touch with, and you know, and equally, you know, I've invited people over and I've put on concerts and been invited over to play at people's festivals, and that's a lovely, you know, a lovely exchange, definitely.
It is. Well, in actual fact, I was interviewing somebody else who was talking about going to college and having the lesson about networking. Really, you're talking.
I hate that word.
And he was saying, and it was ridiculous, because it was like, if you go out and try to network, it's so false. He said you just really need to just get out and meet people and enjoy it, you know, and go out, have a drink and have a beer, you know, have a beer with somebody and just sort of become friends with people. And I mean, so really what you're saying, you know, it is network. That, but it is
well, there is this trend I've seen in the guitar world as well, where, you know, you do get invitations, say, well, if you put on a concert for me, I'll invite you to mine. And I just think, well, I'm not really into doing that. You know, I'll invite people that, you know, that I really, you know, feel just get a real buzz from hearing them play. And equally, I'd want you to do the same. You know, should just be on that merit alone, rather than only in
a little bit sort of artificial.
Very. Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, if you're my friend on Facebook type of thing, then, you know, it's like, yeah, but I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
It's sort of very, very peculiar, and you see that a lot. Even to like, I run a summer school that is about, you know, playing in a band, and I get a load of people who either might have played in a band years and years ago, or just never got around to doing it, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is for them to learn the tricks of the trade, not because we're going to say, now get your notebooks out, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to tell you what to do. It's more a case of them sort of hanging around while while they're working on things, and the tutors are sort of they swap over groups and stuff, and it's the conversations that go on, and those little bits where, you know, somebody will do, well, don't do that, but why don't you just try that? What, like that simple? Yeah, like just that, you know. And it's that sort of thing of trying to get things to be real and to be, you know, about communicating with people. Because if you say to people, well, you've got to communicate with other members of the band, you end up with people just sort of being almost like puppets, you know, trying to, I've got to look at the sort of thing, you know, whatever. So I think it's all links into that same thing, because again, if you get all that top layer off of that, as soon as you're playing with other people, whether it's, you know, classical or contemporary stuff or whatever, you know, it's the feeling of the fact that you're communicating with one another. You can't make that happen, you know, artificially. You just have to be able to communicate with people. It's such an important thing, you know. So that's a lovely story about that. You know, you've obviously had a lot of really interesting experiences early on, which really sort of helped, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So after these, then, when do you start getting to the point you sort of go, Oh, it's my job. That sounds awful, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does kind of creep up on you as a
Yeah.
musician, I think, I mean, certainly if you're at music college, then your aim is hopefully to make your living out of being some kind of musician. I mean, you go in a multitude of directions from that training. But definitely, yeah, that was my aim. And I kind of always said to myself as I was getting to the end of my degree, I remember saying to myself, I'll give it till I'm 25, and if I am making, I don't know why I thought 25. That's probably when I was 20. It probably seemed like a long way off, and I'd given myself a big enough time gap. But yeah, I just remember saying to myself, if things are happening and I'm getting interesting work and keeping busy enough with my playing, then I'll carry on. That's what I told myself.
Well, actually, I mean that's not uncommon. I remember seeing an interview with Mick Jagger
Oh, right.
when he was, I don't know, he obviously wasn't even 20, and he said something like, I think it must have been about 18 or something, and he said something like, well, we'll give it to we're sort of 20 or whatever,
Yeah.
probably end up doing something else type of thing, because it's like no one knew, and because you don't know at that age, and particularly then, because it was like, well, it was unheard of. How could you look at being, old, in other words, over 30 or whatever, in the in the mind of somebody who's 18,
Yeah.
doing this, it's a
Yeah.
bit like, well, but there they are, still trundling along,
Mm.
playing whatever age they are, so I think it's quite interesting when you make those calls on what you're going to do.
Yes. Yeah.
You sort of project forward. I know I did,
Yeah.
and um, in a sort of strange way. But yeah, so what was the first thing that when you started to, put it this way, when was the first year roughly when you sort of went, this is all beginning to fall into place?
Um. Well, certainly, I do think that winning that competition when I was 19 did really help, because from that point on, I was getting a decent amount of work through my college years, which then led on. So with lots of guitar societies invited me, and it is, the classical guitar scene is small. And it's very, I feel very lucky to be in it. I think it's a very warm place to be, and
Yes.
it's not particularly competitive, and there's a lot of sharing of of ideas, and definitely word of mouth really helped in that scene. So yeah, so I definitely got invited to play at various events like that, and yeah, and I went over to study with Ben Verdery in New York for a few months after my degree, which again opened, my eyes to another whole kind of way of playing with people I met at his department in Yale University. So all these things really sort of just helped me to confirm that this was the path that I wanted to be on. And I suppose, yeah, I can't really think of an actual year. I mean, when I did my debut at the Wigmore Hall, that was obviously a really special moment, because I'd gone to so many concerts there, and it was sort of the iconic place for chamber and small solo playing
Yeah.
in London. So that for me felt like a huge achievement to do that, and not that I was ready to retire after that. You think, well, I've done that,
No.
now I can go home. But certainly, that definitely was such a thrill, and made me feel, felt very privileged to play there.
Yeah.
Special
Yeah.
moment. I
So
remember coming
how,
off stage actually, and just when I came off after the final bow and just burst into tears, and the door person was like, "Oh my God, what's wrong? That went really well, didn't it?" I was like, "No, I'm just so happy."
yeah, well, I
When
mean,
you're somewhere like that, and it's such a important moment for you to
yeah.
hold it together
It's,
on stage.
so I'll ask you a question about how you prepare for going on stage, because for a lot of people, being a solo performer is it's a different thing, isn't it, from playing with
Mm.
others. How do you sort of prepare yourself, or have you got like a little routine?
I sort of have now, because I've gone through different periods in my life, I suppose. Obviously, and I suppose children kind of is a mark point in that. Definitely I'm how I was before I had children, during when they were really young, and then now coming out the other end, they're a bit older. So I would say that has had an effect on me, certainly with my mental approach. And I have to say, though, that obviously how comfortable you feel in the dressing room is all to do with how you've prepared at home in the months leading up, to a performance, and weeks leading up to a performance. And I've certainly learned that since having children, because after that, when kids are young, you have virtually no time for yourself. I had a couple of performances where I felt incredibly uncomfortable, and I really had to and I thought I was preparing in an adequate way, but I think you're just obviously more tired and not as focused on yourself. So I've had to, really look at my preparation. I spent lots of time soul searching and looking at the way I prepare. So I do actually have a routine, and really what it is, it's not nothing silly or crazy, but there's certain things that I think about in my head, think about what I'm about to do and why I'm doing it and what I want to achieve, and these just little things,
Yes.
of, like you say, because when you're a solo, certainly there were times when I was struggling with performance anxiety, where I'd let my mind really run away with myself. So I did have to sort of organize my thoughts, and would focus on the negative, doubting myself, that sort of thing. So yeah, I do have, little things that I do as well on the day, certainly not playing too much, and not running through everything, and
No.
doing a lot of just time, if you can. I mean, every concert day is different, and sometimes you're like, might be just got off a plane and then gone and rehearsed and then gone to the hotel, had a quick shower, something to eat, and then you're on. And often actually those are some of the best concerts, because that's what I've learned as well, that
Yes.
having too much time to think, I find, isn't good for me. I'm actually much better being busy, and just getting on with it, and then you don't have time to sort of question whether you can do it or not.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I think actually that's the advantage of when you work with other people, that you don't have time to think, if you see what I mean. Because if there's a bit of banter going on between people and all the rest of it, you get a group of guys
Yes.
playing together, and it's all that, nothing's serious, and everybody's having a bit of a laugh, and then you just happen to play.
Well, I definitely, and I have to say that I don't think I've ever told the guys this, but since playing in Vida, it's actually improved my solo playing. For me, anyway, personally, I feel like it's so much better, because it puts everything in perspective. And I think I probably was at times take it too serious. Not you have to take what you're doing seriously. I don't mean that.
No,
Not
I
that
know
you're
what you
caring
mean.
less about it, but you can overinvest in worry
Yes.
and being negative. And since being with them, it's purely playing in that quartet is a total joy, and the music we play and just the time we spend together. So yeah, it really makes you see the joy of making music, which I've learnt to then bring into my solo
Yeah, I think
preparation as well.
that's a really important thing, because again, that's something that you can, and I've been through this, where you play in certain things, and in the end, it gets to a point where you think, why am I doing this? I don't like whatever,
Yeah.
and because what's the purpose of you actually playing? Uh,
Yes.
and if you're not having some sort of joy from it, then is it really, like, going back to what you were saying really early on about what is it that you're giving? What's the purpose of you actually being involved? What you're giving to artists, to the world.
Another thing that really helped me was an experience I had, which would have been probably probably soon after I graduated, actually, and it was the terrible event of the Omagh bombing in Northern Ireland. And a good friend of mine, composer William Lovelady, he was asked to write a piece for the first anniversary, and he asked me to play it, and Bill and I went over to on the first anniversary, and I played it in 2 services, with lots of families of the victims, there in the congregation, and that was such a powerful experience, because it was pure. I remember I just played that and a Bach prelude, and just just playing those pieces, it made me realize that, because I was worried, I was thinking, oh gosh, I can't make a mistake, this is such an important moment for them, and I obviously felt quite, you feel the emotion of that, in the room, of their experiences, and something does take over you, and it also made me realize it's nothing, which was a beautiful thing actually. It's nothing about me personally. It was only about the music and the comfort that they could get in those few minutes listening to this beautiful music that Bill had written, and Bach, because I played some Bach. And I remember, I do remember that moment a lot, because it just reminds me that, why am I getting up in a state about this and worrying? I'm lucky that I think about it, I can play these pieces and just get on and do it and just give some pleasure to people. So that's an important memory that I draw on.
So the guitar quartet that you play, when did you start doing that? You said it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was the end of 2014 I joined.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Right. Okay. So what? How different? Well, obviously it's different because it's not a solo.
Yeah.
But what sort of concert experiences were they different type of venues or?
They were definitely, yeah, because they had already. I joined the quartet when they'd already been going for quite a number of years, and they had an agent in America, so we started going over there, a couple of times a year, and the venues are generally bigger there, so audiences were bigger. So that was definitely a different experience to play to a bigger crowd, and often you're amplified, and so it's quite a buzz in the room, definitely. And often not playing to guitarists as well, often just playing to general music lovers, music societies and things. And it's just that whole, there's a lot more spontaneity, isn't there? I think when you're playing on stage, and obviously and on the banter between pieces as well. So it is a very different experience. Like I say, which I've sort of drawn on for my solo concert since as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. That it's really sort of fascinated me about the difference of, because I've never really been a solo performer, you see. So, well, I say that maybe I did for a while. I can't remember, but generally it's always been with other people, and it is that sort of thing of what if you were just on your own, traveling about. That is different, very different. And I can really sort of appreciate how that goes. And with those sort of concerts, because they've got an agent, is that sort of nicer that you don't have to deal with? I'm assuming you have to do a lot of the bookings of your own stuff yourself.
Yeah.
But having an agent, it's just like, well, you're just turning up there and.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it, that you can just focus on the playing and definitely. And I suppose, like you say, the whole experience of going to those concerts in a group, it's just so much more, everything, it feels easier with definitely, whether it's the going out for a meal before, and hunting, trying to find your hotel in the rental car, and whatever it is, it always is easier when you're in a group and you feel more relaxed generally. Certainly, and then that just continues into the concert hall as well. Sharing those experiences is always easier and definitely more fun. And just on stage, just somebody doing something slightly different, and then you react to that, and it's that lovely, because obviously as a classical musician, we're not improvising, so that's as close as we get, to being spontaneous. Being able to bounce off others' ideas musically is a real, I find that a real, it's a real pleasure.
Because I remember seeing some pictures that you posted up of some of the concerts. I mean, some of the places seemed amazing that you were playing.
Yeah, we did do an amazing tour of China last year, which was just stunning, and the people there were just so warm.
You timed that well, didn't you? You timed that all right.
Yeah, we got out just in time. Yeah, well, you could say that about trying to get out of this country. Anyway, sorry, we mustn't get. No, I'm not going to get political.
No, exactly.
But no, we did have a wonderful tour there and really well looked after.
Yeah, and that's interesting, isn't it? Because China. I'm sure they must have the most amazing guitarists in China.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
it's like, because it doesn't sort of spring to mind to start with that you think China. I mean that's
there
true.
are a
That's
huge number of incredible
yeah,
guitarists coming
yeah,
from China in the last, well, gosh,
yeah,
20, 30 years.
yeah. I mean, it was very similar to. I remember seeing a documentary about who was it? Was it Ashkenazi doing a tour? No, Daniel Barenboim, I think it was, doing a tour of like a masterclass series in
Hmm.
China just after, well, obviously after the Cultural Revolution, but you know what I mean? It was like they were trying to put everything back together again because
Yeah.
obviously in that period of time they were burning pianos, weren't they? But and incredible talent. Even then, you think,
Mm.
well, where were these people practicing? Because they weren't even allowed to practice during the,
Mm.
you
They're
know.
incredible discipline,
Oh,
definitely with music studies. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, do you find that must have been quite an eye opener? Anyway, doing that, going
Mm.
to.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously over the years, because we can just see much more in the international, what's happening internationally, and yeah, it's just phenomenal some of the footage I've seen, and actually in a couple of years before that, we were on the panel for a competition in China, at another festival there, and it was just incredible the standard of playing, and yeah, such yeah incredible
So,
techniques and
what would what
musical
would you say?
breaks.
What would you say is the most interesting tour that you've done, or set of concerts?
I think for me, going to China was just a real thrill, because it's such a different culture, and so I was really excited to experience that, and yeah, it was wonderful to see some of the landscape, and to meet the people really was the biggest joy. I mean, we were so warmly received, and just the chatting, to them, it was just a real treat, I would say. And that's one of the great things, like I say, is the meeting of people, that I love,
Mm.
definitely, wherever I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you. How do you balance your life with your work? Because how many children have you got?
I've got two
You got
daughters.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So how because that's a challenge in itself anyway. So what
Yes.
advice what what um what advice have you got?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure I can
Not
give.
asked this
I don't know
question
how
of anyone
successful I've
else
been at
actually.
juggling it. I've struggled. I mean, it is a struggle. Certainly, any parent, who works, it is a struggle, and I always wanted to be there for my children as much as humanly possible. So maybe I've gone a bit overboard with that at times. But I wanted, so I do struggle. Like I struggle if I have to go away. And I do really struggle. I can't tell you how much I struggle leaving them. That is, and that has caused obviously me to question. Again, like reflect on what I'm doing. And but I don't. It's not like I'm going off for 6 months of the year on a tour. I go away generally for 7 to 10 days. And obviously, with being able to Skype and everything, we
Yeah.
talk a lot every day, and so you can still feel that connection. But yeah, it is tough, and I do struggle with it. But I know that certainly as a musician, you can't just stop your job for 10 years and then
No.
start. There'll be nothing to go back to. So I knew that I want, it was a big part of me that had to keep it going. And once the girls, have left home, what would I have then? So I sort of knew that music was too important to live and to give up. Sorry. And I've got a very, very supportive husband who's also, he's a composer, so he understands what I do, and how important it is to me. So we've worked hard at juggling it, and so if I'm away, he works at home. So luckily they've always got a parent,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, what advice would I give? Well, I think probably, I suppose, is not to try, which I've been terrible at, is to try not to beat yourself up when you need to go and practice, or when you do have to go. I've suffered terrible guilt, and I think any parent, my mum said the same. There's the minute you have a child, there's guilt in your life because you always
Mm,
feel like you're not quite doing a good enough job, and you could
mm,
be a better parent, and that's the same for any profession, I think, probably. But yeah, don't beat yourself up when you're going off to practice and go do a concert, and you're not being self-indulgent, and you're providing I always see it as well that they look at what I'm doing and get excited as
mm.
well,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
hear my stories and my experiences, and I know it is inspiring them as they grow up,
Yeah.
to find their own passions, because that's what I think is so important in life, is to find at a young age, even if it only ends up being a hobby, but just to get something that really gets you excited and makes you feel passionate about that. And I know they both have that at the moment, whether they carry on doing their things, that's fine, but it's lovely to see that, and I think my husband and I have inspired that in them. um,
Yes. Yeah, that's lovely. That's, because it is difficult, and as you say, just being a musician, it's actually like you made that comment about, people sort of think, well, it's not really a proper job type of idea.
mm,
Um, that is quite all pervading. And I still sort of, you can almost sort of feel that in people's thinking when you're talking to people that are not involved in music, and they don't realise, how you're doing it all the time, even when you're not physically practicing something.
yeah,
You're thinking musically, or thinking about, you can't get away from it.
no,
It's it's a strange experience, really. And I think if you're not involved playing a musical instrument at a particular level, you can't understand that. Why
no.
it's,
And that's
it's
okay. I mean, I've decided now that it's fine. You can't expect everyone to understand your point of view or way of life, and that's fine. That's okay, as long as you feel like you're doing a decent job at being a human.
yeah,
I think just carry on.
totally, totally. So, just as a final question, I mean, what would you, looking back, if you could see, meet yourself when you were younger, what would you say as a bit of advice to the younger you?
I think I would say to enjoy everything as much as you possibly can, to ask as many questions as you can when you're studying. Certainly when I look back at my studies, I was a good good listener as a student, but I do feel I didn't question enough things. As I get older, I'm definitely much more inquisitive about
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
understand things, so definitely to be more inquisitive. And what else? I think i think just being actually being flexible, I think, because when I was at college, I certainly was quite single-minded about wanting to do solo. um and obviously now looking at what I'm doing, there's a huge mix, in my work, which is the beauty of it, really. The variety, and it all, as I'm learning it, it all helps you become a better musician. All these different experiences I'm having. So I was quite single-minded, about just doing solo, and I think, and now that was, maybe it was good that I was really disciplined and into my solo playing. But I really say to students now, take every opportunity you can, play with as many different instruments and other guitarists you can, and just gain as much experience as possible, because it's all so valuable. And you may think, oh, I don't want to do that, that concert for
yeah,
100
yeah,
quid, or
yeah,
and I think people can be quite judgmental. And
yeah,
just try it, just try everything as much as you can,
yeah.
and just gain as much experience as possible, and be really positive about what you're doing, and then reflect, and then think, okay, well, not going to do that again. But just always trying to be positive and open to what potentially you can experience. I think
That's
definitely.
that's lovely. Well, that's great advice. Right. Okay. Well, we've done it now. So it was lovely talking to you.
And you, Vic,
So I
really
can't
lovely to
remember
see you again.
last. Yeah, it was such a long time ago. I can't even remember when it was. I mean, it must have been.
It's about 10 years ago, I think, when you came round. Yeah, when we
Yeah.
did all the NLP stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It
yeah,
could have even been longer than that. But anyway, it's
yeah, maybe.
fine. But we won't go over it. We won't,
Well, thank
because
you
that's the trouble.
for asking me.
When I look back at things with, that time, it's like I heard somebody say the other day, yeah, everything seems only 5 years away. You know what I mean? Like, when I look back, it was only 5 years ago, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's in it for us. It's like anyway. So that's lovely, and we'll catch up soon. All right.
yeah, yeah. Take care. Lovely to see you.
Bye.
Okay.
It was great to speak to Amanda again after all these years, and if you want to know what Amanda's up to, you can contact her on her website, which will be listed on the show notes. So until next time, I'll see you then.